Hi, my name is Sunny, and this is my presentation of my infographic project for the class Info 424. Now, you might not play video games, and maybe you don't even know what Pokemon is, but there's a pretty good chance that you know who this guy is. Yeah, that's Pikachu. And Pikachu, despite being really cute, is also really famous. He's been called one of the most recognizable cartoon characters of all time. He's right up there with Mickey Mouse and Super Mario. And Pikachu is the product of a video game series called Pokemon. Pokemon was created in 1996, all the way in Japan, by a man named Satoshi Tajiri. And from its humble roots, it spread all across the world. And from the late 90s to the early 2000s, the world was really engulfed in Pokemania, which was millions and millions and millions of kids. Pretty much, if you were under the age of 10, anywhere between the late 90s and early 2000s, you probably played Pokemon. And there was so much merchandise about Pokemon. Pokemon grew from just being 2 games to being an entire franchise, starring TV shows, movies, comic books, action figures, trading cards, and so much more. You could even buy Pokemon brand spinach. Yeah, spinach. Anyways, so that was the late 90s, early 2000s, where Pokemania was really big. That's when I was a child, and that's how when I got introduced to it, and most of the people my age really were into Pokemon during that time, but then eventually we all grew up, and we stopped playing Pokemon as much, or most of us, I still do, but yeah, we stopped playing Pokemon as much, and even then, Pokemon still holds a really dear place in our hearts. And despite it being over 20 years old, it's still been going really strong, and relatively unchanged, surprisingly. Pokemon is still really popular with a lot of kids. It's not anywhere near the height it was in Pokemania, but it's still is doing really well. They're still selling lots of games and making lots of shows and movies and action figures and all that stuff. So when I first wanted to make this infographic, I wanted to show all the different aspects of how Pokemon has changed throughout time, how it grew from its humble beginnings to taking over the world in Pokemania and then declining, and yet despite declining, still being perseverant and adapting to the many changes of the modern ages. But unfortunately, that was such a huge topic, and it was so much information. I actually thought it was a little bit narrow slice of the Pokemon world in its entirety, but even then, trying to illustrate Pokemon in just our world was still way too much information. So what I did instead was focus mainly on the main series games of Pokemon. So most of my infographic mostly just deals with the main games, none of the side games, not the anime, not the movies, and none of the other merchandise. And it focuses on the main series games through the lens of each Pokemon generation. As such, it's the history of Pokemon through its generations. So what each generation is that every couple of years, Pokemon kind of releases a new set of Pokemon, a new batch of Pokemon, about 150. And within each batch, they're completely different Pokemon in a completely different environment within the games, and yeah, completely new set of games. And each generation lasts about 3 to 4 years, and since its inception, there have been 6 generations, over 700 Pokemon, and 6 regions, and many games. So yeah, I thought the generations could maybe help categorize what was even still a big topic. And yeah, that's the introduction and how it